So, what is your why for financial freedom? I think that's a really important question to ask. And I think that everybody who wants to become wealthy really needs to look more, rather than just the wealth and the things that you get. It's really important to look at the why. What's the purpose? What's the substance behind it? And this interview is going to be a little bit different. This is my friend Ellis Hammond, who's joining us. Awesome guy. He's also a person of faith. Him and I share some things in common. We were both youth pastors. He was a college pastor. And we really bring our faith to what we do. And I don't really talk as much publicly about it, but I think it's really important to talk about because it really kind of underlines the why. And I've talked about human trafficking and my desire to fight human trafficking. And I think those are the things that really keep you going. Things like your faith, things like your purpose, your family, the things that really are important to you are so, so, so important. So Ellis, welcome today. How are you?
What's up, man? I'm pumped to be here. Love being in the presence of a like-minded brother. And thanks for having me on, man.
Awesome, man. Well, it's really good to have you. And I think I just want to give a little clarity too for those that maybe wouldn't necessarily call themselves somebody who believes in God or is a Christian or whatever. Just really that having a spiritual life that you bring to your business is so important because I think it really, if you can get centered in who you are, it really you'll live a much more consistent and fulfilling life. So hopefully anybody can take this no matter where you're on the spectrum and they can see something in you or me. But I do love talking about faith. I love talking about Jesus. I love talking about all this stuff. So really excited to have you. So let's talk for a minute, just kind of how you got started in real estate. I know you were a pastor like myself. And how did you make that switch? Because people think, they ask you, how did you get from here to there? Tell us a little bit of that story.
Yeah, and to echo that, dude, if people are not, Christians or followers of Christ, there's so much, man, that that I think what people can relate to is that my old mindset to my new mindset and how, for me, honestly, my faith actually was kind of keeping me or prohibiting me from really kind of reaching the levels that I've reached today. And I think everyone probably has some type of kind of old mindset or old way of doing things, rather that be religion, rather than be your parents' worldview. Like we all have a worldview or a mindset or a way of believing and seeing the world that is incredibly significant in the way in which we think and make decisions today. And so let that be the transition into my story. I was a college pastor for 6 years, from 22 years old to 20, I don't know, 8, 9. And I went into ministry out of college. My life was really changed in college. My faith became something really serious to me, and just I had a great experience around God in college, and I just wanted to honestly help others, maybe like me, who were maybe standoffish about God and faith and religion, an opportunity to really kind of experience what I've experienced through a real relationship with God. And so I moved to San Diego, California to help kind of build this ministry out here. And it was going great. Honestly, I never thought I would do anything different. But then about 4 years into that, something really changed. And it was one of the young men that was on my team. He had been a student. He was a student in the past and then came on to our ministry team. And I remember, man, this one day him walking up to me, and he was typically like a happy, kind of go-lucky guy, big dude, former football player. And I remember seeing like something's not right with this guy. And so I just immediately asked him, man, what's going on? And he said, dude, I don't have enough money this month to buy groceries. Like I don't have enough money this month to put food on the table for my family. And man, that was like by far the biggest turning point of my life around the view of money. Because up to that point, like truly, admittedly, like I don't think I realized how fearful I was of money. And that was partly the reason why I didn't have any and why I went into ministry, honestly, because it was like it was the path of like, I don't have to think about capital creation and wealth creation and money. But in fact, I did. And here was a time where I needed money because I needed to help this guy. I didn't have any, nor did I know how to go create it. And so that was like where things switched for me, where I realized I am limiting my impact that I can have on this world. In fact, my faith is actually not large. It's actually small because I have, essentially cut what I can do in this world in half by not figuring out the money game. And dude, so we just got my wife and I just got really serious about figuring out, well, how do we go and create and build wealth? And so real estate just became that vehicle. There's a whole nother story around that.
Mm.
But that's where we learned about the investment of real estate. And, our first kind of access point into real estate was a duplex here in San Diego, California.
Okay. You brought up a bunch of stuff there I want to kind of delve into. So, it's really interesting. And you said this kind of in the beginning, at least you alluded to it, the idea that almost people's kind of religious background or their, again, because you can be raised religious of any background or even non-religious, and it can actually keep you from living a life that's free or being in a relationship with God or being in a place where you feel free. And I just was actually coming through the parking structure on the way back. I was coming back from a trip and came through this parking structure, and it gave a quote from Steve Jobs that it was talking, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was talking about like, don't just take dogma, but actually think for yourself. It was kind of like giving yourself the freedom to actually think. And that's very similar to you. I was raised in a family where, it was all my family, they're all teachers. My mom's a teacher, my dad's a teacher, my grandma's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, my uncle's a teacher, everybody's a teacher. So it's a very different mindset than being an entrepreneur or doing real estate or looking at money. And I do think it is something that money really does. It in a way, it doesn't define your life, but it can be used as a tool. And if you've been taught, money is evil, then there's a lot of this thought of like, in religious background, don't go after money, whatever. But like you said, you were in a position where you were trying to help someone and you didn't have the resource to do it. You didn't even have the tools to know how to do it. So tell us the story of how did you kind of like, once you realized, like you made a plan with your wife, like what did you bought a duplex, and did that go well? Did not go well? Like, well, tell us some stories around that.
Well, I think the problem of that problem that we really get out of this kind of perpetual mindset that money is bad, or it doesn't have to be around money. I mean, just because your generations were teachers, is because we're typically taught by like the same line of thinking. I mean, even think about in the church, dude, like the people you're typically learning money from or typically getting advice from the Bible around money are pastors. And I love my pastor, but dude's never been an entrepreneur. He's actually never created wealth or invested in real estate. He went to school, went into ministry, or studied theology and became a pastor. And so, it's kind of like a perpetual cycle, right? And that's what I realized, that actually most of the sermons we hear are fear-based because they're taught by people who have fear of money. You know what I mean? Because that's what they've been taught their whole life. And so, I think that's why I am so open, honestly, about my faith and our wealth journey, is because, dude, there just aren't a lot of folks like you and me. And I would encourage you to be more open about your faith and your money journey, because more people of faith need to see and hear that, because there's so little opportunity for them to really get that education, good financial education. And I would just say this, man, like, if financial freedom or margin is something evil, then there would be no church in existence. Like, churches need margin in their budget, right? To be able to give and impact their city. I mean, the Proverbs teaches that when the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. Why is that? Well, because when the righteous prosper and they have margin in their life to give, then you can help those who are less fortunate or who live on the margins, right, in your city. And so, anyways, man, it's a topic I'm super passionate about, and money. I've become more passionate about money because not enough people want to talk about it. And I'm like, it probably means we.
Well, you're right. And I think, there's the thing you don't talk about, money or politics or sex or, those things. It's kind of a taboo topic a little bit, especially in families or in like religious settings. But I think the older I've gotten, and I don't know how this happened, but I just realized that, I was kind of like taking a lot of the stuff out of context, or just kind of, I mean, there's just even a lot of personal beliefs I had, like, who am I to think I could be wealthy, or who to think I could, do all these things. And a lot of it just comes down to, for me, some of it's been like personal growth stuff and making, affirmations, this is who I am, or meditating on scriptures that I feel like these are true, or things I feel like God's spoken to me. But it's really combining that, the personal development world with the faith world. And I'm always amazed when I find someone who is an entrepreneur and they're not like just religious, but it's really in their heart. They really have a heart that they really want to go after, like that sense of purpose of, what am I here to do? What's the reason I'm here? And my life is about being in relationship with God. And so that's the part that, like, I don't see a lot of people doing that. I've got a couple of people locally in Los Angeles, a couple of mentors and friends that, like, they really do that. but it's kind of like a lot of times it's one or the other, right? It's either you're like, you develop yourself in these ways, or you're like a person of faith and you don't, or, they're just kind of different, but bringing those together. So, I love that, man. I do think we need to talk about it more. I think we need to share more because, there are so few places. I mean, you have Dave Ramsey and you've got Financial Peace University, and these are kind of 101, but really, what do you do with people that are ambitious like you and I, right? They're like, let's go make some money and go make a difference in the world.
The fact that the only person's name you just threw out, Dave Ramsey, is the issue, because Dave Ramsey actually is only helping people kind of get back to neutral who have dealt so poorly with money and have such a fear of money that like they just need to survive. So like anyone who wants to go above like survival, who do you even say, dude? Like there's so little. It's why like I hope Ellis Hammond becomes that name, man, because who's actually dealing above the margin line. It's very, very few. Thankfully, I have several mentors now who are that for me, but I think a public figure, very few.
Yeah, no, it's it. I'm actually going to a conference next month. It'd probably be after this podcast comes out, but there's a group up in Northern California called Bethel that does a conference called Heaven in Business. So it's the idea where you combine, how do you do this in a way,
a retreat or something?
Yeah, it's like a retreat. They do teaching, they do worship, they do some just, what's God saying to you about your business and just that kind of stuff. So I just love the idea of how do you be spirit led and really submit your.
For those who are listening, by the way, and who are maybe like there actually are some really great groups, by the way, man. Like Faith Driven Investor, Faith Driven Entrepreneur. I mean, Kingdom REI is the platform that we've built. Kingdom Real Estate Investors, C12. There's some really great organizations out there actually putting out good content and really encouraging and building community around this. Like you said, that one. So there are some, definitely.
Yeah.
What's interesting though, and being a young guy, most of these are, and I just say this a lot, most of these are led by old white men. And so the ability to like really connect and relate and like hear someone relevant is just is hard, man. So, I mean, it's why like I talk about this on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, because, your other, I mean, I've listened, Dave Ramsey is not that into, like, he's got a big following, man. But, anyway, so that's, there are some other groups out there talking about it.
No, I think you're right. I did videos talking about Dave Ramsey kind of being 101, and it's, it's good. It's great basic principles, but there are times where you should go in debt. There's times where you should invest more. And obviously I'm not getting anybody advice.
Debt is your friend. Like debt
especially these days.
We just heard this. I mean, if for anyone who would say debt is not your friend or an asset, really doesn't understand economics or understand where we're at right now. I mean, we both know this, dude, as real estate investors, cash right now is a liability. We have negative real interest rates, right? Why? Because inflation is higher than the interest rates by the federal government right now, or the Federal Reserve. So if you're sitting in cash and you're saving money, you're losing money. And the only way to really have a shot at financial freedom or financial independence and really create margin in your life is to learn how to leverage debt so that you can take your cash and put it in an asset that produces yield and back that by fixed debt, right? That your payments stay the same while your cash flow increases. And so, I mean, we can start getting real estate now, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like that is, that's the reality. I mean, I just love that thought that right now cash is a liability, debt is an asset.
I love it. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, cash is a liability. They've said the rate right now is 7.1% as far as inflation. It could be more like 10 to 15%. We don't know exactly what it is, but you're losing money just by sitting there. Excuse me. Obviously it's important to have some cash, but being invested in assets that pay you to hold them, you borrow at these ridiculously low rates. I mean, it's unfortunate in some ways because people that are not educated on money, the poor and the middle class, they'll just stay poor and they will never get ahead unless they learn how to use debt. And it's challenging with our system. And I used to be an investment advisor, Ellis, and it's just the things you have to tell people is just what's suitable for them. You can't really, you can't tell somebody specifically here, you should take out a HELOC on your home and you should do this and go put it in this thing. But in reality, I've done those type of things where you're trying to take on as much debt as you can so that you can do safe investing. But it's really wild. Right. But yeah, so we'll get into real estate in a minute. You talk to us a little bit more, and I love the conversation. I love how you're it's very apparent that you are a leader, that you really want to inspire people, you want to make a difference beyond yourself. I know you have your group that you lead, which has a number of, your Kingdom REI group, which is a mastermind, and you have other things that you do with that. But and I understand you were a college quarterback, and so you've kind of been in a position of leadership, for a long time, and in ministry, leading people there. But how has some of that leadership experience helped you in your mastermind and some of the other groups and things that you're leading now?
Yeah, that's really good, man. I say like I do. Well, let's talk about leadership first. I think, we all have lids around our leadership, meaning, your organization or your team, like if you're the quarterback or you're the CEO or, you lead your household, like the level in which that organization can grow is capped at the leader, right? And so, and based on your belief and how big you can grow, your leadership skills, your operational skills. I mean, that's the 3 laws of leadership John Maxwell talks about. So
Yeah.
leadership is massively important. I think, the first thing I always tell leaders is like, are you doing what you expect others to do? Do you do the things you expect others to do? So if you expect other people in your organization to train and get better, are you daily training, reading, doing the things that it takes to get better? I mean, honestly, like, and I look at some of the best leaders of organizations right now, Elon Musk. I mean, that dude sleeps in a 600, square foot home on the base, man, because he's just committed. I mean, he has an expectation for his organization, and he's willing to do the things that he expects other people to do. And so I think that's definitely what I've learned for sure. I mean, it'd be one of those things doing college ministry. I mean, if I was calling men to a higher standard of living, and yet then I was going out on the weekends and doing things that were subpar or questionable, who am I then to come and say, guys, are we really, what I mean? Like, what are you doing at the fraternity house on Saturday night, right? When I'm doing something similar downtown. So I think that was one lesson, is like, man, the leader, and look at our country right now, dude. All these people want to talk about mask ordinance or mask mandates. And you got all these photos of them out. They want our kids to wear masks in school, and yet they can go to a public event and not wear a mask. Like, but get me wrong, I don't think they should wear a mask either at a public event, but don't require someone else to do it when you're not willing to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the first principle of leadership.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, there was another point I wanted to make about leadership. I think what I do, man, is the second thing that I've learned, and this is just my gift too as a leader, that I do for our mastermind specifically now, is that I feel like it's it's what God has given me the vision to do, is essentially raise the ceiling of helping other kingdom entrepreneurs see what's possible for their life. And I just think because most of us have such a low ceiling on what we think is possible, because we've never really been given permission to dream and to go after something big and bold and ambitious, that like I would die a happy man if I help, hundreds and thousands of people kind of raise the ceiling of what they think is possible for their life and accomplish something massive, that would ultimately bring God glory and help a lot of people. And that's what I think, a true leader does, is like he or she is constantly kind of raising the lid for others to go and accomplish what they want to accomplish. And so those 2 things, man, when I think about leadership, there's a lot more, but those are really, really key for me.
I think the first book I ever read on leadership was in high school. I read a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
I'm reading that right now. Yeah, I'm actually reading that again right now.
So I've read a bunch of his books over the years. And again, I think why this is important is somebody could say, hey, I'm just an investor, or I'm just I'm just trying to syndicate a deal or do something. But I mean, people don't realize that how important it is to think about how you impact other people. That he basically says, John Maxwell, he makes stuff so simple, but he says that leadership is influence. It's just simply being able to influence. So if you want to make a difference in the world, you want to make a difference even in the lives of your family, you want to lead your family as a parent or as a sibling, or even with your parents, like how do you want to do that? And the way you do that is by leading by example. Like what you said, you're not hypocritical. You don't say this and do something else, but you're consistent. And that's what I love about just when you share, you're consistent. This is who I am. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing. And when people see that, they're like, oh, I want to follow that, because they can tell you're being genuine. You have a purpose, and you're also.
And I'll say too, like, what I too, man, about that, and I think, people of faith, what I've learned, man, I think a lot, people are so surprised that I'm so open about my faith. And they're like, especially being in business. And what I always think, I'm like, I'm not sure why you're not, because what it has actually given me is like a real committed tribe of people that are really committed to me in our business more than anybody else. And so most people are really scared to most people are really scared to like have a niche or kind of hang their hat on something. And I would say, especially early on in building your business, if you're in real estate and you're trying, let's say raising capital, for example, or looking for kind of investors, your want to try and kind of please everyone will actually be your downfall. Like it will actually be the reason why most people don't want to work with you. And it's kind of, for me and honestly, I didn't do this on purpose, man. I didn't know anything about marketing coming out, but what I began to learn in the process was that people were starting to come to me and want to work with me and even give money to me, not because of my experience and track record, but because they believed in my mission and my story and what I was trying to accomplish in this space. And that became really obvious. Like I should continue, not talk less about this, but actually talk more about who I am. And I think I was telling you before the show, like that does get less and less part of the conversation as our business grows, because now we're kind of in the second and third degree of those relationships. But early on, man, gosh, that was so key. And so I would just encourage any young entrepreneur investor out there to not shy away from that, especially people of faith. But even if you're not a person of faith, like, the things that make you who you are and understanding what your story is will likely resonate with other people, and to go find those people. And you'd be surprised, man. Like I'm much, especially in this business, Bronson, this, 1,000 investors, dude, you can buy a lot of freaking real estate with 1,000 people. Like the billion-dollar companies I know that we both know, their active investor base is between 1,000 and 1,500 people. Yeah. It's not a lot of people.
No. Yeah, no, you're right. I think, I love what you shared, because it really comes down to being authentic and being who you are. And the more you try to be, like, oh, I'm doing I talk to people, oh, I'm doing a real estate podcast. Well, I'm just talking about real estate. I'm like, well, are you trying to reach active or passive investors? Or what are you like, who are you? Like, that's what everybody's trying to ask. I think the first thing, and when I was an investment advisor, this would come up of like, the first thing is like, can I trust you? Can I trust who you are? Are you being genuine? Are you being yourself? Like you said, you had all these people that they saw your mission and your story and what you're doing, and they say, this guy is consistent. And then the second question people ask, at least when it comes to investing, is, can you help me? But I just think like we do this kind of separation, this like church and state thing, or business and spirituality, where it's like, it's all spiritual. Like this is a very spiritual thing that I do. And I work with people, and I think money is incredibly important, because they spend their lives working for this money, and then yet we get to kind of steward it, right? We get to manage it and try to hopefully grow it. And the idea of the parable of the talents, right? That, the certain servants were left with a certain amount based on their ability. And really, the ones that did well were the ones that invested and found a way to actually grow that. And I think that it's, people say, well, the talents, that's like your talent, whatever. I think it's true, but it's money. It's having to deal with money effectively. So
just for clarity's sake, that passage was about money. Like, I mean, that was like, they went and multiplied money, just so, don't let the old English fool anybody there,
Right. Yeah. They use the word talents, but it's talking about money. Well, let's kind of move forward here a little bit. Tell us a little bit more, because we got a few more minutes. So let's talk a little bit more about, and I think that's really true, to just be authentically who you are, bring your faith in it, bring everything that you are. But what are some other things that you would say to somebody who's starting out, in real estate investing, whether actively or passively? What are some things that you'd recommend an individual would do?
I would say the most important lessons I've learned in the real estate space is your network is everything. Like I always say, when people ask, what's your best advice? Go build your network before you need it. Because in this space, especially on the active side, if when you need it, it's too late. You know what I'm saying? Like when, especially on the, larger real estate deals, like when you need the network right now, dude, we're just put an offer, an LOI on a $50 million apartment building. I honestly have that's the biggest transaction we've ever done, or will do if the offer gets accepted. So I don't know how we'll put all that together, but I will say this, I have the network to put it together. Like I know who to call to be like, hey, can we make this work? And when I say who, it's more like 8 people, of like, I'm making several calls to figure out, hey, do we have the network to go take this down? And if I hadn't been spending the last 2 years building that network, this deal comes on our plate. It's a great opportunity. It doesn't matter how great the opportunity, man. If I don't have the network to take that down, what I'm saying, like, the deal's going to go to somebody else. And so I just think like the best thing is to go build your network before you need it. And I mean, I'll give you a great example of that. When I was my last year in ministry, or what was going to be my last year in ministry, and I knew I was going to be transitioning into the world of real estate, I just told my wife, like, hey, I need to put 10K aside. And 10K was a lot of freaking money, dude. Like, I need to put 10K aside to invest in coaching, in events. Like, I need to show up to places and begin to build relationships with people, because I don't have that right now. Like, my entire network was 18 and 19-year-olds. Right. And so,
right.
That was so key, man. Of the, some of my all of our advisors in our mastermind I met that year. Many of my business partners I met that year. Several of my mentors I met that year. Kingdom REI probably would never even got off the ground if it hadn't been for some of the, the first relationships I made that became members into that mastermind community. And so your network, and even this, like when I was pastoring, and I heard a podcast like this, and if someone left their contact information at the end, I would call them, and just try and begin to figure out what they're doing. How can I add value? And so I was just obsessed with like making connections. And a part of that was because I just didn't have any. And so I was that much more desperate. Right. So that would be one. I would also say number 2 is really focus on what your strength is. Double down to your strength. I'm an evangelist. I love people. I'm a relationship. I'm a connector. That's what I do. And I'm a visionary. Like, that's what I do for my team. None of that is really real estate oriented. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But we did $87 million of real estate transactions in 2021, right? How? Well, because what I've learned is that I have a strength. I know what I'm good at. Let me go build a team around my strengths. And so leveraging, other people's strengths that are essentially, what do you call that? In collaboration with yours is another key to this business. If you're not good at underwriting, or your, numbers is not your thing, or maybe you don't like people, you don't like money raising, then go find someone who does, right? And so, my 3 partners, one's an engineer, one's been an underwriter, and one's, and been in the Navy. And so operations, underwriting, kind of systems, processes are the things that I knew I had to go look for in order to really go build a powerhouse team that could help us accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. So those 2 things, man, in terms of network, and then knowing what your strengths are and trying to surround yourself with complementary skills, are everything.
That's it. No, I love it. And then you've done some phenomenal things. Like you said, $87 million in real estate this last year. Congrats on that. It's amazing. But we always say at our meetup, we talk about the power of networking. A lot of times, like, you don't have the network. That's why you have to go meet them. And people are really open. If you go to meetups, you go to national events, you join groups or masterminds, you're going to meet people. And it's just amazing what you can learn. Like, there's just so much out there. And then if you can just try to find a way, you mentioned this as well, like, how can I add value? What can I do that can really grow this, this person? What are they looking for? And a lot of people that are very successful have all kinds of problems they're trying to solve, and they're out there creating value. And then also what you said about basically finding a team that does something that you don't, that maybe you're not good at, because nobody's good at everything. And a lot of times people come to multifamily particularly and think, I've got to do everything. I've got to raise the money. I've got to find the deal. I've got to do this. You can't do it all. I mean, you're not going to do it well, and you're going to just do like a 20
scale. You can't do it in scale. I mean, you can do it on a property, but you can't do it in scale. No way. And you know what's interesting, man? I feel like I heard that advice a lot, the network piece a lot, when I got started. For those of you who've done deals or are doing deals, this only gets more important. Like, it really is true, man. Like, there are so many levels of this, and your network is everything. It just only gets more important the bigger you get. And so, because the deals only get bigger, the equity checks only get bigger, right? The risk only get bigger. I mean, it's just as like, this only becomes more important the bigger you grow. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so key.
Absolutely. Well, Ellis, I wanted to just say I really appreciate you. I know we just kind of met recently, but I feel like I've known you for a while just because of your heart and heard about you and your reputation. But it's really great to be connected to you. But I just want to say I just really respect how you've been very open about your faith. You encourage other people to do that. You live consistently with who you are. You built a tribe around you. You've networked well. You're just out there adding as much value as possible. And even as you're sharing, you're trying to call out, the young people saying, hey, let's, here's what you can do. Here's what you can achieve. So I really appreciate that. And just your heart for really helping people get to the next level. It's very apparent. So I just want to honor you for that. But what's a good way for people to get in touch with you or learn about what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't share this book as much. I did write something that I think if you've listened this far, maybe you'd like to hear more. I did write a book, and it's free. You can go download it at missionofmultifamily.com. That's missionofmultifamily.com. And I wrote an ebook really kind of laying out my story and the things that I had to overcome, especially my old money mindsets. I think if you've kind of related to a lot of what we've said today, you're gonna really like this book, just because I'm very open and honest and vulnerable, and why I see multifamily as a great asset class to be in, if you want to make an impact and you also want to make money. So missionofmultifamily.com. Our investment firm is based in San Diego. That's where I live. And so that's symphonycapitalgroup.com, symphonycapitalgroup.com. We work with accredited investors, and we're acquiring multifamily, all the way from San Diego to as far east as Texas. But maybe, Bronson, you send me some of these Florida deals you're working on.
Yeah, we pick it up. We pick it up from Texas further east of there. So we got the whole U.S. covered.
Yeah. So between me and Bronson, we can definitely help put your money to work. So symphonycapitalgroup.com. I would say, you can go there and learn more. We have a podcast and a lot of different resources. So and then Twitter, man. Like my most honest thoughts are on Twitter right now. So go find me on Twitter if you're a Twitter. If you tweet, go find me on Twitter.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoyed it.
All right, so I really enjoyed this interview with Ellis Hammond. You can just see the passion and the purpose and the desire to want to make a difference in people's lives. To me, it's just very, very apparent. So I hope you felt inspired by this. And I think it's really true. Whatever your faith background is, and whatever you're doing in life. I just watched a documentary recently about a guy who's a very successful A-list celebrity who took his own life recently. And the documentary kind of showed like he just really didn't have a sense of purpose or vision for his life. And there's this saying, or there's this verse that talks about without vision, people perish. And so some people are still living, but they're kind of dying inside. So you look at the people that are the most alive, making the most difference in the world, that are really people that we are inspired by. They always have a big why, right? And I talk about this a lot, that my big why is to really end human trafficking in the world. There are 20 to 40 million human slaves today, which is just shocking, several times the size of Los Angeles where I live. And it will continue to get worse unless we do something about it. So to me, that's my big why. That's why I want to make a lot of money in real estate and be able to give to really help support this cause, create awareness, get other people excited and fired up. So I'd love to know from you, what are some things that you're, what is your why at the core? What is your why? If you haven't figured that out yet, that's okay. There are a lot of great events that talk about, goals and just really clarifying, what it is you're here for. But I do think that is a very spiritual process. And it's important to say, well, what am I here for? What did God make me here to do? Like, what's my purpose? And so I'd love to hear from you. I think this is a topic that, again, everybody can relate with because, we're here for a reason. Sometimes we don't always know what that is, but just being open to that and pursuing that and using real estate and using investing to be able to free up your time and to be able to do what you're here to do. So anyway, I hope you're excited about this as I was, but anyway, please check out Ellis's stuff and his mastermind, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Mailbox Money.
You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.